Hey guys, Robbie K coming at you with another Robbie K movie review. Our second movie of the week is a little more on the kiddie side, you might be thinking, but nevertheless, you never know what the movies have in store for you. So let's go ahead and get started as we get into a Robbie K movie review. But first, the introductions. When it comes to it, first, thank you very much for taking a look at my site for reviews, and thank you very much for, of course, if you're a returner, again, supporting the site. Tonight, we go through the usual ordeal of, I talk about the trailer from what you see on the credits. I talk about the movie of what my expectations were from the trailer. Go into kind of a quick and dirty review, usually done around the 3 to 6 minute mark. And then if you want, a little more details associated with it, stick around for part 2 and we'll kind of give you my thoughts into more in-depth detail. But nevertheless, let's get started as we do the movie on the kid who would be king. The trailer is all showing that this movie is solely based on the legend of King Arthur and the various renditions and tellings of Camelot, Morgana, the Sword Excalibur, and the Knights of the Round Table. Now cue modern age, where a young Alexander is a kid who's a little bit down on his luck / bullied at school with a couple of his friends. In regards, just kind of being the odd man out and being the youngest. Because of their awkwardness and being prime bully targeting, they kind of are fearful of going to school. Until one night after being chased by said bullies, he stumbles upon the mystical sword Excalibur and learns from Merlin, played by 2 different actors, based on the age he plays. Absolutely pegged into a quest to fight Morgana and stop her from rising. Of course, having to assemble his own squad to face on the coming marauders. What does it look like in terms of the expectations? A bunch of kid humor coming in with maybe a little bit of special effects and an adventure that's probably going to be the first kind of big family movie of the year that will get more interest than some of the other films that I think have come out so far. Nevertheless, let's get started as we go into the quick and dirty review. For this phase 1, I went in there sort of with a few lower expectations based on how the trailers kind of gave it more of a corny, cartoonish look. Well, to my surprise, I was very pleased with this film. It was very fun, a good use of comedy that may not have been the funniest, but very well timed, very well placed, with most gimmicks not getting out of control like they do in many kid shows. Throw in the fact that the action scenes are actually pretty decent, yet well within the scale rating, or the age rating that they gave you, and definitely surprisingly packed with good lessons, again, entertaining themes and qualities, and a wonderful kind of spread for both parent and kid alike, of course with focus on the younger generations, but parents getting a little bit out of this film as well. In addition, the acting is actually pretty solid. With younger cast members, sometimes we lose the balance and get a little lost. And while I'm not saying there's any Oscar-worthy roles, because of just the kind of the characters themselves, this was definitely one of the better performed younger audiences that I've seen in quite a while, so kudos to them. While predictable, a little lackluster at parts, and definitely down the kiddish nature with predictable components, the movie still is definitely one that I think a lot of families will enjoy, with a number of theater quality components to really have fun with, and really make an experience at the theater. So definitely worth checking out. Outside of that, without going into any more details, I'm going to have to say that this movie, definitely in terms of its adventure, family, and fantasy aspects, is probably about a 7.5 or an 8. In terms of movie overall, we're probably looking around a solid 7, to be honest. Maybe a 6.5 if we're being super picky. But nevertheless, that's my quick review. If this is where you leave the review, thank you very much for checking it out. But if you like, subscribe, put in anything that I can do to make this a little better, I'll be happy to do my best to do it. However, if you are looking for a potential detailed review, then stick around, because here we go. Now, in regards to the next part of it, we always like to start with the likes first before we come to the areas of improvement, or what I call dislikes. And with the likes, definitely we start with the acting. I can definitely say that again, the young cast does a nice job. Not too overacting at most of the parts. Very well done and rehearsed in their lines, as British actors know how to do very well. and totally impressed with the chemistry between the group as trying to be sort of a modern Knights of the Round Table motif, but yet still being kids in sort of middle school, elementary, or just graduating elementary school age, and capturing those characters, as my friend Mary, yes, you know Mary from all my reviews, pointed out. It was very kind of well balanced in terms of it, and totally, totally worthwhile in seeing the adventure at hand. Throw in the fact that the teenage Merlin was hilarious in terms of the directions they took. Funny hand gestures that come with that, fantastic delivery, and a good use of actually using Sir Patrick Stewart as the older Merlin to come in and make enough cameos worthwhile his appearance. Fantastic use, and Merlin's character in particular was my favorite. Very well done in terms of the driving force, and an integrative member that wasn't just for comedy purposes, but still utilized very well. The key to this movie comes in terms of a lot of balance, and, you know, most of the time I don't think that necessarily happens. And in this film, there was a lot of things that could have gone wrong, and a lot of things that were requiring to be well-timed, and I think they did very well with that. Again, part of that balance comes from the fact of knowing the audiences as well as who will be taking the audience members to the film. And while it is definitely geared towards kids, and we're talking that kids will enjoy the slapstick humor, the kind of off-the-wall awkward comments, and really relate to the kids' plights as they go through the various quests and components with it. They'll enjoy the very simplistic, mundane humor that YouTube has made very famous in this day and age, and Nick Jr. capitalizes on. But still, grown-ups will still, or older audience members who take it with it, or like me maybe are reviewing it, will probably enjoy, especially if they're kid at heart, just the fun feeling. It's a good pace, it keeps you engaged, manages to integrate some components into it, and put some adult humor components that really work. And of course, if you were kind of experiencing some of the same situations, and no, we're not talking about slaying dragons and demons, but more of the realistic themes crossed into this, there's some good relevance to it as well. In addition, when it comes to the kind of adult morals that are definitely put in there to try to teach a lot of people and cover a lot of generations, that message is strong, well delivered, a bit preachy, but certainly well integrated and shown in this movie about the various themes, which of course I could ruin, but I think I'll give away too much, so we're just going to keep going with it. Nevertheless, action-wise in kids' movies, sometimes you really drop the ball on it, and the kid who would be king, surprise, surprise, actually didn't do that bad of a job. Scenes are actually decent and excited with a beautiful orchestra score, sound editing that brings it to full life, and gives you kind of the modern meeting the archaic in terms of kind of battle style. Not too violent to be inappropriate for kids, though. Monitor your kids' ability to handle kind of shadow demons and skeletons like are in there, and loud noises before you take them into this as kind of a fair warning. But adults won't be bored because, again, it's a nice balance of integrating humor, character, and fighting into the mix. So very well done in terms of that. In regards to keeping the story on pace, pretty much very well done. A few rush parts that were kind of jammed in there, and outside of the predictability we'll talk about. It was actually very, very nicely integrated, and again, a good use of just all the components. Which brings me to, in terms of this kid action adventure film, that balance really brought out the fun entertainment values. But where do some of the dislikes come in? Well, for one thing, again, you've got the predictability of it. And while that's very hard to kind of fool me and bounce me off the wall unless you go a really off-the-wall concept like Serenity did last night for me, the movie just is going to be a little bit on terms of how long it will take to get there, which is where the adventure components come in. A few of the gimmicks are fun to watch, but get a little overdone. You'll probably see that when it comes to some of the hand gestures that are involved in magic. Again, very funny on a few parts that go very well with it, but sometimes a little overused and adding some unnecessary length to the film because it was about 2 hours. And while it didn't feel that way, I would say there were a few places of editing. You got some slip-ups in acting and storyline. Again, trying to rush a few things and turning into some of the other fantasy components that come with it. You know, they're cliche and a little overdone. I guess I would have liked to see a little more of the bad villainess put into there, because I would say that in terms of her character, she's there, integrated fairly well, but simplistic to the point of not integrating in as well as I thought it was, with, again, a few gimmicks. And that's probably going for the rating that it went through more than anything. Though, again, a little creepy looking at times, so fair warning, again, for your kids that may get easily induce nightmares from figures. Nevertheless, to finish this up, the biggest thing that I kind of had with this movie is that in terms of the area of improvement, and it just left my head, so give me a minute to see if I can bring it back. The suspension of belief. Now, I get it. It's a fantasy. It's a kid's film. Totally understand. But in a world where the realistic physics are kind of... being still followed, they defied a lot of stuff as things came in. And of course, you could always use the theme if you're one of those that loves to pull out kind of the rules and figure out, and theoretically wise, you can always blame magic on there. But again, when the physics laws are still being applied, the inconsistency in some of the stuff and the ability to do it, as cute as it is, and some of the manners that they did, the physics just doesn't work out. And you have to suspend that belief to not find some of the stuff corny. But again, that's probably still one of the minor dislike, but it was probably the thing that older audience members would roll their eyes at, while kids won't really care because it's an adventure. Again, the movie works very well. Surprised by how much fun I had in it, but it's very well balanced. And whether this is a British director, which I didn't look up the names, apologies, or not, the team who brought this together really made a good family film with theater quality components and an adventure that's very can-do. I totally recommend this for families to go to, especially given the fact that we're about to get a bunch of family films, and if this is your time to go, this is a good one to kind of start with. Or a good introduction film for various kids. But again, warrant the warnings I put in this review about the darker figures. There is a couple parts you may have to shield their eyes for, but it all depends on how your kids behave. But I had fun with this film, and despite some of the limitations that I found with it, in terms of that it's not off the chart original, but still very fun and a good balance, I recommend this one again for theater. My scores, as you heard, is probably about an 8 in its category, 7 over in movie overall. I had fun with it. So until then, guys, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening to my reviews. If you want more, if you have more to say, if you just want to start a conversation, hit me up on the various likes and screens depending on where you're viewing this. Share. Please help me kind of spread it out and help more people with it. And until then, I appreciate it. Have a wonderful night. Bye.